really good backdrop. Hi, and welcome to Women of Worth Wednesday. I don't know why it's saying that. I sure hope that we're not sideways. We might be. So comment if we're sideways. This happened 2 weeks ago and the whole video was sideways. So we're running a little late. I have had road construction and a huge tire explosion. Not my tire, but someone else's. But that's just what happens. So please comment if you are watching and where you're watching from. I'm excited to talk with my guest today, Rachel Glad, and her name is perfect. I know you hear that all the time. For those of you that have read this new In the With God book series, I Can Choose Joy with God, you will be familiar with Rachel and her beautiful story of her amazing family and her spirit in choosing joy with God. I think that when I started working on this book, it's been a couple years ago now, I knew your story because your mother-in-law and I are good friends, and we are sideways. Okay, it did it again. So let's see if Rachel, you can scoot in here. We're gonna just squeeze really close. I don't know why it did that, because I figured it out why it did it last time and I didn't do it this time, but it still happened, so it's okay. We're just gonna roll with it. Are we right side up, Corey? Please comment if we are. So grateful to have her story and her beautiful son Nathan's story. I wish we could have arranged this so that you all could meet him, because he's magic, right?
I think so.
He's very magic. Like, he's one of those people that you can't be grumpy around him. So the fact that his last name is Glad is very appropriate. And, oh good, we're right side up. So we're just going to have to squeeze heads together because, or maybe we can scoot back. Is that better? Yeah, there we go. Nathan is how old?
He's 12.
He's 12. And if you were to compare his size to an average 12-year-old, what age would he be more size-wise, do you think?
Size-wise, if you go based on clothing size, he wears a 3T.
A 3T. So he is a huge spirit in a very tiny body.
Yes.
And he has a syndrome that is commonly known as Brittle Bone syndrome. Is that true?
Yeah, brittle bone disease.
Okay. But what is the official Latin crazy doctor phrase?
It's osteogenesis imperfecta, and he has a severe form.
A severe form. So severe that I want you to be more in it. So
sorry.
Yeah, there you go.
Hi.
So severe that when he was born, how many broken bones did he have?
Actually, we didn't count, but because there were too many to count on the x-rays. They were either healing or in process of healing. So he was breaking before he was even born.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
And so most of the time he has a broken bone.
He breaks on average once a month. Currently, he's actually in a really bad cycle where he's had 5 fractures in the last 6 weeks. Yeah, he can break doing hardly anything. They just break.
And he's in a wheelchair, but when he was little, he would scoot around a lot. Is he still?
He still scoots around. He can sit up really well. He's got a really good trunk strength because he sits and he scoots on his bum. Okay. And that's how he gets around our house most of the time.
Okay.
He's not in the wheelchair in the house very often because he'd rather access his world on the floor. He can interact more with us on the floor.
But he's really good at the wheelchair.
Oh yeah. He's been driving since he was 3 and he can make it around anywhere.
He can do anything he needs to do. I'm just going to adjust there. There we go. He is the biggest light, and he is courageous. And I know from working with you on this book that you will probably give him all the credit for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I'm going to just say he has parents that helped provide that basis of how he sees himself and how he sees the world comes from your home and from your parenting. And I'm going to say that because Rachel won't say that, but I think that there's so many of the darkest, hardest moments that our children watch how the parents handle it. And it is in those moments that they internalize that approach to life. And I know that he came amazing and special, but the one that holds the biggest burden are his parents and you for the daily processing of wrapping his body and getting him to doctors, and how many surgeries has he had?
Again, we don't really count, but probably in the last 3 years, he's had over a dozen surgeries and procedures.
And big ones. We're not talking little ones.
These are neck fusions and revisions
and halo bolts in his head.
Exactly.
Yeah. And when you spend a lot of time, you also have 2 other children.
Correct.
And so, as all mothers know, that if you have a child that requires more of your attention, in the back of your mind, you're juggling showing up for your marriage and showing up for your other kids. And even when there's not extraordinary circumstances like Nathan has, I don't know a woman around that feels like we have that figured out, that balance.
I don't know that I do.
Well,
but we do it together. We're a team, and we look at it as a team, and we just tackle everything together as a family.
Yeah. But I think it's fair to say that as a friend and as a woman on the planet, you're trying to figure out all the time that balance of when Nathan's in a more physically demanding time. How do you keep up with, I struggle some weeks and I don't have that extraordinary circumstance to take care of everything on my list and feel like I'm still showing up for the other relationships and requirements in my life. And so I wanted to have this conversation. I asked quickly right before we went live, because we were delayed. It was a little bit more rushed than normal. About a time or a situation in your life where you knew very specifically, because what is Nathan's prognosis? What does life look like? Or do you even know?
We don't know. He surpassed the odds when he survived birth. That they really don't know what his life will be in the future. And so we just are learning as we go.
Okay. Because if you've read this story, for those that have, you really had prepared for a funeral.
We did.
On his birthday, and instead had this amazing miracle of him surviving and continuing to survive.
For 12 years now and counting. So, and we hope for many more.
Yeah.
So, and there's no reason why there wouldn't be more, but you never know. I mean, one fall could end it for him. That's how fragile he is.
And so how do you not go into fear every day? What do you do? What could you offer for the rest of us that fight our own fears in other ways, right? What do you do to kind of stay in the place where you're turning towards the light and the joy and not getting overcome by the fear?
I think the biggest help for me was to realize, at first I was planning for a funeral. I was planning for him to not be here, and that destroyed me. It just broke my heart, completely crumbled. And then when he didn't, and he was here, and that complete switch of realizing how grateful I am for him. And I'm reminded all the time, just take those moments that you have and cherish them, and don't take them for granted. Just enjoy every moment you have with him, because you don't know how long you have. And I think that's really with all of us. We don't know.
It is. I think for me as well, I know that when I get into a place where the worries and the fear have overtaken, I have somewhere along the way stopped staying present, right? And I've at some point stopped expressing gratitude. That's one of my go-to tools to help recenter me, and stop staying today. I'm thinking about too much of tomorrow and 2 weeks from now. I like to plan, and I think we have that tendency as human beings, because it gives us a sense of security if we know, or we think we know, how tomorrow's going to look, and we don't. None of us know.
We don't. And I think that I still plan. I still plan for tomorrow. I still plan for the future for him. And I just plan that he will be here.
In hope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then if we have to adjust him, we adjust, what our future is. If we happen to be fractured, okay, then we're going to have to do it this way instead of that way. But we never allow it to stop us.
So he's 12. So you've learned a lot of things. But those first few years, can you kind of take us back to where everything felt new and every break was kind of a new experience? I know you write about it, and how learning to set the bones or trying to run, you realized at some point you couldn't run in all the time to the doctor, or else you would never do anything else. So what did you do in that place where everything has felt like it's upside down in your life?
I think we just took every minute and every situation one at a time. And we just were like, okay, what does this require of us now? And then we would we would do it, and we would take our time to decide that, because we didn't rush anything. So like if he would fracture and I was alone and I needed help, I would think, okay, what do I need to do to help him? And so then I would medicate and maybe call a neighbor over to come over and help me, and I would take my time. It wasn't a rush. It wasn't like, bam, I need to get him splinted, bam, I need to get him right to the hospital. I took a moment to process and to think about it, because I knew once he was medicated, once I gave him medicine and we didn't move him, he was okay for a little bit, for me to figure out the best way to handle this. And I think a lot of times I find that I do better when I take that moment in any situation. Breathe for a minute, realize the world is not ending right this moment. I can take a moment to process, take a moment to figure out the best answer possible.
I love that. I love that takeaway of all of us, right? Can we breathe? Can we slow down? Can we take a minute to see what do we need now? And that we're not going to be destroyed by this moment, but it feels like that at the time. And I love that you said sometimes you have to call someone for help. And I think we are much more willing to give help than ask for it. And so
that's the biggest thing I've learned with Nathan is I can't do this by myself. I have to rely on others, and especially my husband. I mean, this is a team thing. My children, they all know. And now it's like clockwork. They all know what to do. They go grab, the comfort items. They go grab the splinting material. They grab the medicine, and I can just sit there with Nathan, and all the stuff is right there, and we're ready to go. And we just know now what he needs.
And so, like every cliche, there's truth in it, right? So the hard things can either break us or bind us together, and there's no pun intended there, but these breaks have really created a bond in your family, and you've found ways that I feel when I've been around your family, that there is a bond and a love there that is intense and it's joyful, and it's because of this hard thing, right? That has created this bond that you probably don't have the normal little annoyances that are going to be threatening your marriage or your family, because you've learned, like, we need each other.
Exactly. A couple of things came to mind as you were saying that. Each member of our family has a role, and Nathan, we've always said, is the glue. He's the glue that keeps us all together.
He is the glue.
And the other thing is I remember when we were first going to the pediatrician a lot for breaks and things, and he was just talking about how close our family has come over just a few years, because Nathan was only a couple years old, and he said that one thing he learned, and it stuck with me, and I go back to this all the time, is that families where a child or somebody has a special need is either going to destroy a family or make them stronger, and it's our choice on what we want it to do. And it was obvious to him that we had decided to be stronger together.
And that's true. The statistics show that, right? That the divorce rate, if there's a special needs within the family, either, is increased or it, depending on how you're approaching it. One of the things that I felt like I wanted to share that I have learned from your family, and I just learned it recently at the book launch, is that Nathan loves to pass the sacrament in your ward.
Yes, he does.
And I thought it was such a beautiful example of where everyone in the family has your husband, because you being the mom, it often falls on you on the day-to-day stuff, but that he has built a special tray that can sit on Nathan's wheelchair and attach to it. Is that correct? Am I describing it correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the bread or the water are put on that tray, and as Nathan explained how he passes the sacrament.
Yeah, he just it's a motorized wheelchair, and so he just drives up to the to one of the side benches and sits there, and the person on the end will grab off the tray. It's right there at where you can reach that level, and they pass it down, and then they pass it back and put it back on his tray, and then he just drives to the next bench, and he's able to do it all by himself, and he's so proud and so happy that he gets to serve that way.
So does the tray go all the way down and he goes around to the other side, or does he stay where he's at and it comes back?
He comes back. He does one of the in the chapel, you know how you have the middle section and then you have the two sides?
Yes.
He goes down one of the sides.
Sides, because they do have to pass back.
And he just, and he does the whole side himself, and then he turns around and goes and lines up with the rest of the deacons.
I love it. Once I heard that story, that very next Sunday, I didn't look at the passing the same. And I realized how much we take for granted, right? Is that something as simple as that we just are used to culturally seeing all these deacons passing the sacrament. And when you ask Nathan about it, he is so joyful about that opportunity to serve. And he has found many ways to do it, from writing a book that was turned into a play to the work you do with the foundation. Where can people turn to kind of support? What's a website that we can maybe put up so that people can support the organization that you work with? I know you have a really special organization that you work with.
Yeah, we work with many foundations. A lot of them are very dear to our heart. Angel's Hands Foundation, or angelshands.org, and it's an amazing foundation where actually Saturday there's a big bicycle ride that my family will be at and enjoying this weekend. And then of course Shriners Hospitals for Children in Salt Lake City
have been so amazing.
I mean, Nathan is here with us today because of that hospital. Hospitals has just been amazing care, and to be just in our backyard and be a bone specialty hospital. No, it's not a coincidence, but it's amazing.
Isn't God good, right?
Yes, exactly.
I think it's wonderful because Shriners, for those in America, because this show reaches all over the world, Shriners has been around forever. People have heard and seen fundraising for Shriners forever. And we see